kind of advice do you have to homeowners?
Practicing that preparedness. Starting the conversation now is always going to be a benefit to any association out there.
And welcome to Crow Report Live. I'm Dan Odess, president of Global Pro, where we manage your risk to recovery, and we have managed more than $1 billion in that recovery. I'm very excited about today's show. Today's guest is someone that is a dear friend of mine and someone that took a risk and a chance on something, and I'm excited to get into those details about it, especially since the alternative asset class is explosive right now. There's a lot of attention on those things, but before we get there, I obviously want to touch on some of the things that are going on in our marketplace as it relates to insurance and business and policyholders and give you the advice and information you can use. First of all, there's a lot of chatter right now within the industry about what's going on at a legislative level, whether it's here in Florida and elsewhere. There's a tremendous amount of anti-consumer bills that are being proposed and floated, whether it's in the Senate or the House. And there's questions as to the validity of some of the information that is being used as its basis and the direction and where we're headed here. Taking a step back and looking at contributing factors of these proposed bills and looking at some of the issues that are plaguing the industry, I can't help but notice certain trends, certain issues that I don't think are getting quite the attention that they're deserving. For instance, there's this focus on lawsuits bought by policyholders against insurance companies, and where policyholders' lawyers have victoriously won and get awarded attorney's fees, and how that in itself is contributing to this rise in premiums, particularly here in Florida. But the interesting thing is that the insurance companies, industries widely are reporting billions in profits. So I'm kind of, there could be a point of confusion and certainly a point of contention in anyone's arguments that if you're on one side reporting billions in profits and on the other side trying to lobby for rate increases where it's been proven that you have done something wrong by either delaying or denying a claim, and now a policyholder has to pay its attorneys, and here in Florida we have fee shifting, why you wouldn't be entitled to get paid that? Why should it come from the indemnity that you otherwise should have been paid in the first place? The other thing I'm seeing a lot is contractors teaching insurance classes. The last round of these anti-consumer bills was supposed to address issues with contractors, assignment of benefits, and those that are taking advantage of it. Meanwhile, they pass anti-consumer laws, which actually restrict the policyholder's rights to assign the benefit, not the contractor's ability to accept it. So again, we're restricting the policyholder's rights, not the contractors. The insurance industry is reporting profits, but at the same time, again, wants to restrict the policyholder. Taking it a step further, you have brokers actively, very, very actively promoting this idea that somehow they are claims advocates and can help you with your loss controls and risk management and et cetera, et cetera. I'm seeing a lot of this out there where it's a real hot topic to talk about how they have all this stuff in-house. The reality is they're not licensed to do it, nor do they most often even have a copy of the product they sold you. Next time you talk to your broker, ask them, can you please send me a full copy of my policy, a full accurate copy of it? You'd be surprised at how many of them are slow to respond or can't at all, and perhaps even forget to even follow up on the request. So how is it that they can help you with loss controls, risk mitigation, or claims management if they don't even know what you're actually entitled to? And your entitlements are explicitly stated in the policy. If they're not, then it's ambiguous and therefore it's covered either way. They don't have it, and the fact is that they can't possibly adjust it for you. Then you have law firms. Law firms claiming to actually be able to adjust claims these days. What I find most interesting in that is that those that have gotten involved in those or have retained those law firms and gotten them involved in their claims have seemingly found their way into our office, and we start looking at some of the things that the law firm is doing, and we realize one thing is that they're not adjusting their claim. They're simply making demands of the insurance company without actually going through the adjusting process because they don't have the patience for it nor the resources. And quite frankly, they don't even know what they're actually doing. So they don't know what it's like to go through inspections, present damages, and do these things. They just know how to litigate. So the faster they can get there, the sooner they can do what they're being blamed for on the legislative level, which is get their fees paid. So you got to be careful about who you're going to for information and what you need in order to be able to get paid. And I think it's a real good opportunity for a lot of us as policyholders to wake up and to realize what it is that we're asking of these professionals in these industries to do. And I want to go on record as saying, I like insurance. I like insurance companies. Quite frankly, their deceitful practices is exactly what gives us existence on the recovery side. So, the fact is, though, there's a better way to do this. And I think that we would still be here and there would still be a demand for the information and our services. I just think that there'd be a lot less frustration, and I think there'd be a lot less bad information out there, which is leading to these anti-consumer legislation. And I can't help but think that this is a little bit of an opportunity for, or the insurance industry rather, is being a little opportunistic with the influx of people into areas like Texas and Florida, where you're seeing these significant rate increases, where you have this significant demand for real estate, cars and other things, which is obviously leading to more insurance, more policies, and really like a uncontrolled market. I'm all for a free market, but we certainly don't have that here. Just do a little bit more research. We talked about this last episode about the investigation into these managing entities for these holding companies, which owns the insurance retail companies that are selling these products. And they've just found how unchecked that issue is, and how they're just basically setting the price as to whatever they want it to be. And it's contributing significantly to the premiums themselves. So we need to wake up. Great first step for policyholders. Let's start asking for our full copy of our policy. Ask for it. You can actually get a copy of something like this actually before you bind it. I'm talking about a business owner policy or a property insurance policy. Get copies of these things. Even if it's, let's say, not the absolute full copy, at least get something in your hands that it resembles or should resemble what it is that you're actually buying before you make a commitment. And then once you do make that commitment, make a request for the certified copy of the policy. I talk about this a lot, and it's something that people just kind of like, when they first hear it from me, they're like, oh my God, they send the email, and then they don't follow up. Get a copy of it. Start looking at your insurance policies. They're changing dramatically. What insurance was, let's say, back during the last downturn, like 2012-ish time, it's so different than now. And we're going through another cycle right now. So prepare yourself for that and get the information you need to be able to make decisions that you need to make to protect your business, your assets, and everything, and everything else that you're insuring that you're paying tremendous amount of premium for. But speaking of opportunities, I want to move on to our next segment because, again, like I said earlier, excited to talk with our next guest. It's certainly one of the coolest things that we've seen here in Miami. We've seen obviously an influx of people coming down into the marketplace. We are seeing a tremendous amount of changes to our local economy in South Florida as a whole. I would say the Tri-County area, whether it's Palm Beach, Broward, or Miami. But there's been some really cool, whether attractions, new restaurants, hospitality industry is exploding. You're seeing the announcement of new construction projects that are coming out. We are it's buzzing down here. And one of the things that came onto the market, I'd say right before the pandemic, that I thought was super cool, and someone that I know who helped launch this idea, something that obviously Miami needed because of the success she's having. Clearly, it's showing a need for it. Is the Museum for Graffiti. And I want to invite our next guest, Allison Freidin, Miss Co-Founder. How are you, Allison?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us, obviously. Very excited to have you on here. I want to tell all our guests, because for those that don't know what the Museum of Graffiti is, what is it? What can we expect when we show up in Wynwood to this crazy place with all kinds of very vibrant art? Walk us through the experience. How did it come about?
Sure. Well, to start, for those of our watchers or our listeners who haven't been to Miami or who have not visited the Wynwood area, Wynwood is the largest outdoor open air gallery in the country. It is the arts epicenter of Miami, the arts epicenter of the United States, and that is much in part thanks to street art and graffiti. Prior to the Museum of Graffiti, however, there was nowhere to actually learn about the artists who have converted communities all over the world into vibrant destinations. There's nowhere to learn about these folks, learn about their techniques, learn about their histories. And I set out with my partner, Alan Kett, to change this.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the perspective on graffiti is back in the day, it was a seedy, it was destruction to property. And I certainly think Wynwood as a whole obviously changed that here locally in our market. And so your museum is highlighting the history of it, actually, because I'll be honest, ignorant. You walk down and you look around, cool stuff. You have no idea who these guys or women are that are painting these things. And so your museum is walking the patrons through and explaining how this came about?
Well, sure. The museum exists in several parts, right? So we do have an interior exhibition that you can start in the 1970s and take a chronological journey through the history of the graffiti art movement and find out how it came to take over pop culture, how it came to infiltrate all sorts of production in apparel, in music, in collectibles. You name it, graffiti has played a part in shaping American culture, in cultures all over the world. That would be the inside portion of what we have worked on. It's very research heavy, it's very art heavy, but it also has a lot of ephemera and vintage antiques. So it's an interesting mixture of art and ephemera on the inside. And then on the outside, we have 16 murals that we've donated to Wynwood that are curated in a way to continue an educational experience about style and the difference between street art and graffiti. And one thing you said that was really interesting is how graffiti was so taboo. But I feel like the world has opened up to it, kind of like we see looser marijuana laws and victimless crimes. But regardless, we have to document history whether people like it or not. This graffiti has been all over metropolitan cities, whether people enjoy it or not.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think it definitely brings color. I mean, you're seeing major corporate sponsorships. You're seeing, I mean, it's certainly gone to that next level. And I mean, you've been featured in Forbes, New Times. I mean, every day I see you guys posting in your feeds about all these different good coverage of it. But it hasn't always been this easy for you, and it hasn't. And I know the timing of the launch of the museum you couldn't have been faced with probably more challenges than you ever will in the existence of the museum as we go forward. What has challenged you and your partner the most by launching something so close to the pandemic, and what have you guys learned from it?
Well, first and foremost, Dan, thank you for following along and appreciating our successes, our highlights in the media. It's been a real treasure and dream to have some journalists and some astute folks paying attention to what we're doing. And so thank you for following along. And I mean, obviously we came out of the gate with a bang. December 4th, 2019, we opened our doors. The day we opened, we had a full page article in the New York Times, color photos, nines. We were so overwhelmed with the outpouring of support for the museum and the interest that I can tell you we didn't even have an e-com platform that put our gift shop on the map, that let somebody make a donation, that let somebody sign up for a class. None of that existed at the time we opened our doors, because it was kind of just me and my partner being very scrappy. So when the pandemic hit, we closed our doors to the public. We had $0 coming in revenue because we weren't set up for this, and we had to pivot pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that, obviously, in those times of frustration as an entrepreneur myself, you learn so much about yourself, the resolve you have, and you really learn you look down deep and you wonder, and you really learn whether or not this is actually something you want to do. And you guys have certainly come out in front of it, and it's so awesome to see your success. And one thing I want to talk about though is the rise in consumer demand for alternative assets such as fine art. Where do you being in a museum, Graffiti, and having fine art there, I've seen it myself. Where do you see the market headed in 2021?
This market has exploded, Dan. The new generation of collectors is interested in what they know. It feels safe to them. You grew up seeing these eyeballs behind behind me, I'm sorry. That's what you feel comfortable taking home. It's almost like when it's been on a building and it only belongs to the streets, there's something empowering about owning a piece of a city.
Yep.
So taking home an artist that is highly celebrated as a public artist has really exploded as a trend in the market. You see ArtNet, which is really the authority on the highest level of gallery world, now hosting street level auction. We had 3 pieces in there yesterday in the street level auction, and it's on fire.
Yeah, no, I think what obviously a large part of the success, particularly for this mainstream, like the artwork and the things that and the success that you're having, has to do with culture, right? And I think that Wynwood itself has a lot, or Miami, and how it's embraced graffiti has helped with and drive the demand. Where do you see that there's future growth for opportunity? Is it in, are others, do you think that other cities will embrace it as much as Miami and Wynwood have?
I think that the real estate market and developers, if they are paying attention and woke and staying informed, will understand that investing in art in their buildings, being more liberal about allowing art on their buildings, is going to really impact their property values in the future. Wynwood was a sleepy industrial neighborhood. Nobody had ever heard of it until 2010, 2013, when the street artists and graffiti artists honed in on this neighborhood, all of a sudden making it this vibrant, cool, edgy place that ultimately 10 years later transformed into a global arts destination.
Yeah, and we've always said, there's always been a good focus on art, I think, here in Miami, obviously with the big art week, now they call it, and Art Basel, as it was. I think it's always confusing to me if it's even Art Basel anymore, because there's so many things going on in that same week. Just the demand has been off the charts, obviously, with the events and the venues, and everyone wants to have their exclusive parties. But talking about the art itself, and bringing the discussion a little bit more center as it relates to what we do here at Global Pro about protecting those assets. Something that I deal with a lot is how you value these things. How does someone value this type of artwork? What is a good barometer for it if they are into collecting graffiti art?
That's a great question, Dan, and we research that a lot. In addition to the museum, I also have an art gallery, and we work a lot on licensing deals, corporate sponsorships, strategic partnerships. And what we feel is that because this is this relatively new art form, there's their own rules surrounding it. So what are we looking at when deciding when to invest in a certain artist? It's not necessarily the old barometer, which is auction records and stuff like that. You want to look at who has that blue check on Instagram, who has 1 million followers, who has the latest deal with Nike, who has the latest deal with Absolute Vodka, who's designing that bottle. This is going into people's homes. The big corporations are doing the arts education for these artists these days, and you should really look at who's having those partnerships their cult followings, and also the classic thing, the auction records, what galleries they're showing at, and whose collections are they in, and that type of thing.
It's interesting how you say, the influence of social media and how that has become important to the valuation of artwork. Think about your classics, some of your classic paintings and art. I mean, they're probably not even anywhere on social media, but a lot of what, like the artists behind you, are front and center all over social media, and how important that's become for their brand, and really for credibility as much as an increase in value, right? So you want to make sure that you're credible, and you want to make sure that that people are obviously aware of what it is that you are doing and what your message is. I want to talk a little bit so as a person who I obviously appreciate, love art, someone that has been to your museum, seen it, how are we to determine what we want to buy? What is a good piece versus a bad piece? What attracts someone to buying a certain type of graffiti art that may drive their interest?
So I always tell people, buy what you like. Don't buy something on just as an investment, like you would buy some house or something like that, as pure nickels and dimes. You really want to have what you like, because ultimately, you really want to like what you have, because ultimately this piece lives with you, and you really can't 100% predict the market. So first and foremost, buy what you like. Second, how do you determine what's going to hold its value the most? I would tell you, if you're looking at that, you want to stay away from collaboration. You don't want to take a piece that's two artists put together if you're really concerned about the resale value, because you are going to be selling to somebody who may collect one of those artists as opposed to the other. Finally, you want to make sure that your pieces are signed properly. You want to make sure that they're dated. And also you want to look into the provenance of the piece. So you want to know where that piece has been shown, who owned it before you, because that's pretty cool if you're owning a piece of a gallery director or that has been shown in multiple museum shows around the world. That's a different caliber of collector right there. But every single piece of art in the fine art category, where you're going to spend a couple $1,000s, is going to have what's called a provenance. It's a passport for your piece of artwork that tells you where it's been along its journey.
Very cool. Very cool. I even learned something today. I truly appreciate it. Obviously, very important information, particularly if you're trying to protect those assets. We get a lot of inquiries about different types of insurance products that people are trying to buy to do this stuff. So knowing about these things, I think, is really important. So who's on top right now? And do you see any rising stars in the graffiti world?
I do. Yeah. You'll have to come visit the museum if you want to find my answer to that.
And if they want to visit, and if our audience would like to visit and find out more about it, where are you located? How can they find out information about it? Obviously, Wynwood.
We are located in the very heart of Wynwood, on the corner of 25th Street and 3rd Avenue. We have a website now, museumofgraffiti.com. You can grab tickets there. Not only can you grab tickets to the museum, you can book a class where you can learn how to spray paint. You can, on Sundays, bring your kids for an outdoor drawing class. We're not giving the kids spray paint, but they do get to learn how to draw bubble letters, characters, shadowing for letters with an active graffiti artist.
All COVID friendly and safe?
We do our absolute best. Every kid has their own set of markers. It's outdoors. We sanitize everything. And our indoor ticket system only allows for 6 people to enter the museum every 15 minutes, which is why we really require and encourage everyone to get their tickets online in advance.
So something for all ages. That's awesome. So if you're looking for some fun, safe, something fun and safe to do, definitely check him out. museumofgraffiti.com. It's fantastic. Well, Allison, it's been awesome to have you on. I really appreciate it. It's great to connect again and share this information. I think it's valuable information, particularly with the trends that we're seeing right now. Certainly an alternative asset class, which I believe this fine art would fall within. But really awesome to have you, and I wish you and your partner nothing but the best of luck, and stay safe, and we'll reconnect here soon. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Dan, for having me.
Well, you heard it there. Thank you for everyone that's tuned in this week. Make sure you go online, check us out at getglobalpro.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're constantly going to be putting out more and more information. Follow us, like us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the social media platforms, making sure that you have the information you need and that you can use as a policyholder. We want to make sure that we're addressing important issues that are relevant to you on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. Make sure that you're making smart decisions. As the economy and the markets continue to change and evolve, and legislative comes back with bills and many changes that we're expecting, we want to make sure that you have the information you need to make informed decision as either community association manager, board members, business owners. Tune in every single week to get that information you need. Next week and the week thereafter, we're doing a two-part segment talking about property management, whether it's multifamily as well as community association. We're seeing an explosion obviously on the real estate construction market, but we're also seeing a large influx of people into certain markets such as South Florida. And we want to make sure that all the managers out there have the information they need to make sure that they're staying up on all the information, changes that are coming, again, whether it's legislatively or policy conditions. It's really important that you have that information. So make sure, again, hit the subscribe button, follow us, like us on all the social media platforms. We always want to be your source for the information you can use as a policyholder. Again, thanks for tuning in this week on the Recovery Report Live.